Hello Whovians and welcome to my latest Doctor Who review, where today I review Doctor Who Vengeance on Varos, starring Colin Baker as the 6th Doctor. And this is the 138th Doctor Who story overall, and it is the second story of season 22 of Doctor Who. So the basic plot of this story is as follows. Seeking the rare mineral Zeton-7 to repair his TARDIS, the Doctor arrives on Varos, a world where political prisoners and their guards are all subjected to sadistic tortures and executions, which the colony's inhabitants view and vote on through interactive television. Accused of being alien infiltrators helping the colony's rebel factions, the Doctor and Peri find themselves the latest unwilling subjects in the most extreme form of reality TV. There we go. Okay, so Vengeance on Varos. This is an interesting story. I'd say this is actually Colin Baker's first good Doctor Who story. Kind of like Davison it took a couple of attempts, but when we get to the third story, it's good. I'm not saying Vengeance on Varos is a perfect story, because I don't think it is. It's not as good as, say, Kinder, in my opinion. I know my friend Nicholas Payne is going to disagree with me on that, but each to their own. I think Vengeance on Varos, it's good. Like, it's decent. You know, I wouldn't say it's anything more than that or anything less than that. It's, you know, middle of the road. It's perfectly fine. It's adequate, but it has a lot of problems for me. The first of which I think is the pacing. I think the pacing is a bit slow in certain areas. I think the story feels padded out with this new format. It doesn't work for me being two 45-minute episodes. I would have much preferred you to go back to the original format. It just would have been so much better to have 4 25-minute episodes, because it just feels so slow. The first 25 minutes of this story, so the first quarter of this story, is really boring. It takes ages for the Doctor and Peri to actually arrive on Varos, and by the time, you know, they have arrived, it's 25 minutes, and you're thinking, blimey, that was a long slog. It just takes forever to get going, but once it does get going, the pacing does pick up. But it's a little bit difficult to get into at first. But I do like the concept of the story, you know, the idea of using reality TV to kind of execute. I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, they did something like that, obviously, they will do something like that in Christopher Eccleston's story, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, in which they take reality TV shows from the modern era and actually, you know, do a similar sort of thing. Use them to execute people from life. This is quite good, although I do feel the biggest problem with this story is the tonal inconsistencies. I find this story to have a really jarring tone. One minute it's trying to be very dark. There's a hanging scene which feels completely out of place and totally dark and unnecessary. We also see a scene with an acid pool where two guards get thrown into it, and we see one of them and his skin is all sort of burnt and everything from the acid, and that was kind of dark and unneeded, really, for me. And the Doctor does have a bit of a throwaway line. Hope you don't mind, I won't join you, or something like that. He says, "Sorry, I can't join you," or something, which I assume is supposed to be like a throwaway one-liner, but it does come off as a bit snide. I don't think he should have really said that. It's a little out of character for me. There's also too much campiness. Like the campiness, like the story gets silly in places as well. First of all, the villain, Syl, the slug. What is JNT's obsession with slugs? Like, why are we having slug-based villains? I don't mind slugs. I have nothing personally against them, but the fact that, you know, within a short space of time, this is the second slug villain, it just seems a bit stupid to me. And Syl is completely overacted, completely over the top. The design is silly. I mean, the person that actually plays Syl, Nabil Shaban, you know, he's a good actor, but you know, he really does ham it up at points, and most of the time Syl just kind of sits there. He doesn't do anything. You know, you may as well have cut him out. I would have just had the human villains instead, because Syl doesn't really add much to the story, as far as I'm concerned. The other villains, Quillam and the Chief Officer, they're good. I mean, they're pretty decent for what they have. I mean, they are probably the better villains in the story, and they do give good performances, I'll give them that. The supporting cast are actually pretty good here. I do like the Governor, played by Martin Jarvis. He's quite a decent character. He proves to be quite a loyal ally for the Doctor and Peri. We've also got John Dar, who's played by Sean Connery's son, actually, Jason Connery, which is interesting, I'll have you know. Arak, played by Stephen Yardley, and Etta, played by Sheila Reid. They're pretty good. And also Aretta, played by Geraldine Alexander. There's quite a lot of characters. It does get hard to follow at times, but most of them are all pretty good, and they give decent performances. Colin Baker as the Doctor, you know, I'm sorry, I just still can't get into his Doctor. I just don't really think he is the Doctor, to be honest. I mean, I'm not saying Colin's a bad actor. He can act, but he kind of overacts in this story. There's quite a few times when his facial expressions are just too over the top, and he's still a little bit condescending. He is a little bit better in this story. I'll give him that. He's a tiny bit better, but he's never my favorite Doctor. He's probably my least favorite Doctor. I don't know. I mean, I have to watch Sylvester McCoy to really make that judgment, but yeah, Colin Baker, he's not as insufferable as he was in the Twin Dilemma, and he's not as annoying as he was in the previous story, but you know, in this one, he is sort of taking control a bit more, and he is getting more involved in the action, and his performance isn't quite as bad. He's still finding his feet, and I just don't think he is the Doctor yet. I really don't, and I still hate his costume. I'm sorry, I hate it. I think it's terrible. It's silly. However, Nicola Bryant is always good as Perry, and, you know, I always like her very much. I mean, her costume is a bit silly as well, with all the blue, but there is a moment when Perry, and I think it's Arata, I'm not sure, Perry and Areta are laying down on a sort of lab bed or something, and like they're transforming into these sort of creatures. I don't exactly know what they are, but the makeup, the prosthetic makeup is really good. I just think that this story is a bit baggy. I think it could lose some of its runtime, and I just think the tonal inconsistencies, like it's 1 minute it's campy with hammy acting, the next minute it's too dark and intense, so it doesn't know what it wants to be. And I think that's also down to Ron Jones, the director. I've made no secret of the fact that I think Ron Jones is a very flawed director, and this is another example. He just can't seem to string it together. And the script isn't bad by Philip Martin, but again, there's tonal inconsistencies, and they didn't work that out. But that being said, it is a big improvement over the previous two stories, at least. So I'll give it that. It's the best Colin Baker story so far, but I just can't give it a perfect score. It's not perfect. It really isn't. I did find myself getting a little bit bored in certain areas. It is too long. I think it could have been reduced a bit. The music is actually better in this one, so that's something nice to listen to. But and it is fun. You know, there are some fun elements to it. I think this type of story was executed better in the new series with Christopher Eccleston, but we'll get to that story later. That's all I've really got to say about this one, so I'm going to give Vengeance on Varos a 7 out of 10. It's decent, it's fine, it's adequate, it'll do. That's how I see it. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching this review, and stay tuned next time when I review The Mark of the Rani. So until next time, thank you very much, and I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See you soon. Bye for now.